I recall, in fact, I think these are multiple instances because there is at least one point every single year where it's this random clip of some American court case where they're questioning members of, I don't know, is it the CIA or the, I don't know, but it's always about Area 51, okay? And this guy's like, yeah, no, they're hiding secrets. We have made contact with intelligence. Like, oh, yes, no, we've discovered this really dangerous military aircraft in it. So deep and serious. And everybody in the room is like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like clockwork, it comes out every year. I remember the first time it came out, and I remember going on Twitter because, again, I love my generation. And one of my favorite things after a controversy or a situation or anything that kind of goes on in our messed up world, I kind of go to Twitter to see the memes, the jokes, and people's opinions about it. Not inherently to inform my own opinion, just so I can, hand on heart, just laugh at other people's opinion. I'm so intrigued. And I just remember the first time this one man said, and he was like, this is not new information to us. This is nothing new. You guys aren't doing anything special, right? Another girl commented, I remember this so clearly. She goes, I still have to go into work tomorrow, so this is useless information to me. Another person said, are the aliens going to come and provide a solution for climate change? If so, let's keep them. Another person said, and taxes still keep going up. And at the end of the day, one thing I have actually realized is a lot of people don't really care. You know, they don't care until it comes down on their doorstep, on their footsteps. And I love it. So in today's episode, we're going to kind of be talking and dissecting and discussing aliens.
Female genius.
The Fermi Paradox is named after Enrico Fermi, and he was a physicist. And one day, while he was sitting down with a bunch of his other physics colleagues, including Edward Teller, and if you've ever watched Oppenheimer, he is known as the father of the hydrogen bomb. Actually, you might know it without even watching Oppenheimer, but I found this out from watching Oppenheimer. Great film, by the way. I would really recommend, but it's not a film I could watch again. It's like a one watch only film. But it was a great one watch. I do consider it a cinematic masterpiece, but not all cinematic masterpieces need to be rewatched. But anyway, he was present in that conversation. And then Enrico Fermi looked up into the sky and he was like, where the hell are all the aliens? So today, I am going to be exploring this idea of the Fermi Paradox, talking about where the hell are all these aliens at? Okay, diverging information. The one useful piece of information I had gathered from that stupid rock course. I don't even call it Earth Sciences. I call it rock course. How many stars do you think there are out there in the universe? I'm not even talking about suns, okay? I'm talking about stars. I'm talking about twinkle, twinkle, little stars, okay? All of them, right? And this is a crazy number. It's quoted to be around 10 to the 22, between 10 to the 22 and 10 to the 24. I don't even think I could do one, like the actual number name itself. Okay, that's massive. It's huge. Okay, which comes around to, for every grain of sand on every beach on Earth, there are 10,000 stars out there. I'm going to let that sink in. In fact, I'm going to repeat it one more time. For every grain of sand on every beach on Earth, there are 10,000 stars out there. Crazy. But, of course, you're probably going to say, well, these stars aren't the sun, okay? How many stars are even like our sun? Because we need a sun-like star to be able to sustain life. Though the science world is in contention of this, but they estimate it to be between 5 to 20%. But for the sake of this argument, we're going to use the lower range of estimate and say only 5% of all of the stars in the universe are like our sun. This still gives a number of 500 quintillion sun-like stars in the entire universe. I'm going to let that number sit with you. Okay, but let's say not all of these stars are going to be orbited by planets that are like our Earth. So let's say around 22% of these sun-like stars are actually being orbited by a planet like Earth that is able to sustain life, so therefore is in the circumstellar habitable zone. That still gives us 100 billion Earth-like planets in the universe. Okay, but let's say even if we have all of these planets that have all of the correct conditions to sustain life, right? Let's say only 1% of them are able to sustain life, develop life to an intelligent species like human. That would still leave us a number of 10 quadrillion intelligent civilizations in the observable universe. And this is where the Fermi Paradox kicks in. If by our mathematical calculations and by our understanding of how the science and sustaining of life is formed, the fact that we have not made contact with intelligent life is paradoxical, okay? It doesn't make sense according to these numbers. Today, I'm going to be breaking down all of the very important theories that go along with the Fermi Paradox and potentially provide an explanation as to why we have not made contact with aliens yet. This is an episode that requires notes. Okay. Anyway, so first things first, what is needed to be able to sustain life? Okay, I've got to educate you on this little piece first before we get into all of the crazy, cool, intriguing theories around the Fermi Paradox, right? Number one, temperature. The temperature of a planet is obviously extremely important. You basically need a planet that is warm enough to sustain these very important chemical reactions for life to even happen or to occur or to be able to maintain, right? You also need it to be warm enough to make liquid water available. And if it's too warm, if it's too hot, biological materials like proteins will start to break down and denature, and water evaporates, basically making it almost impossible for life to be sustained. Hold on, I don't like my hair like this. You also need water to be readily available to sustain life. Another very important factor that I don't think a lot of people would know about is the atmosphere. Not only for it to provide important chemicals such as carbon dioxide and oxygen to help facilitate important chemical reactions within our body, but it's also important in maintaining the temperature of the planet, right? The atmosphere is very important because it needs to be able to trap the right amount of heat from our sun, shield the surface from harmful UV radiation that could potentially damage, ionize, and cause irreversible genetic mutations. And so, for example, planets that don't have a strong enough gravity, such as the moon, aren't able to sustain or hold an atmosphere towards its planetary body. As a result, it's not able to trap enough heat to keep things warm enough, to be able to have the right temperatures for all of the things, as I mentioned before, and also cannot shield anything on that planet from the harmful radiation that the sun provides. And then, of course, you need nutrients. And so for all of these different factors that scientists consider to be important for life, they have created what is known as the Goldilocks zone or the circumstellar habitable zone, which is basically the range around a sun or a sun-like star in which a planet can have all of these necessary components and be able to thus sustain life. Obviously, of course, there has been contested with this theory and what we determine as being important to sustain life. For example, the fact that liquid water can exist in a wider range of temperatures and pressures as a solution, and by this I mean if we mix water with other chemicals such as chlorides or sulfates, the temperature in which it will evaporate or boil completely changes or becomes a range, which means that actually, even if it's not in that Goldilocks zone, there is still a possibility, depending on how it exists or the format in which it exists at, to be able to sustain its liquid form, right? There are other facts that, these other life forms might have completely different biochemistries than what we are used to. And so maybe we are measuring everything by the wrong criteria. Maybe scientists are expecting life to be formed and developed in the exact same way it has here on Earth, and that might not be the case. And if we're working with a completely different biochemistry, then we are using all the wrong metrics to measure the case. But let's assume the scientists are correct. Okay, let's assume this is genuinely a fundamental universal law of what is required to sustain life.
Female genius.
The first thing we're going to think about is this notion of a great filter. This is a theory that suggests that between the point of pre-life to the point of intelligence, there is actually something that prevents life from occurring. There is something that basically eliminates, destroys, or makes it so difficult for life to reach the point where they are able to sustain or become intelligent. This then creates a very big question. What is the great filter, and where in terms of a civilization's life cycle is it? Some people think of the Great Filter as a periodic natural extinction event, something we fundamentally do not have control over. So it doesn't matter how well the civilizations operate, it doesn't matter how smart, how effective, how prepared they are, there's just this very big natural event that just gets rid of them, okay? Like a gamma ray burst, okay, which incinerates everything, or a crazy huge asteroid attack that happens every so often. So these intelligent civilizations never really last long enough to be able to get to the point in their technological advancements to be able to even make contact with other life forms in other planets or galaxies. Some suppose that there's not a really crazy big extinction event, but the actuality of having life itself is super duper rare. So the great filter could be actually the jump from having a bacteria cell, which is what scientists theorize is the very first life form or type of cell found on planet Earth, so a prokaryote cell. So the jump from going from a prokaryote bacterial cell to a complex eukaryote cell is so difficult and so complex that this in itself is a great filter, right? And that we as humans are just so special and so amazing. I doubt it, but so special and so amazing that we have been able to pass this great filter. So we are one of the very few intelligent life forms out there, even so, and most can't even get to past this point. It could be that the great filter is even the act of creating a bacterial cell in itself is a lot harder than we are even able to fathom. And this is supporting of a theory which we call the rare earth theory, which suggests that factors and things that are required for life to even exist are extremely rare, or even intelligent life to exist is even rarer. And so that is the great filter in itself, the presence of being able to create life. There's a really funny comparison that this author called Charles Linweaver says. Guys, this is the most white man thing to say, by the way. And he says, dolphins have had 20 million years to build a radio telescope and have not done so. This is probably the reason why we have not made contact with life, because they're just really dumb. Right? They just haven't progressed, and they probably won't ever progress to the point where they are able to build, the space technologies that we require to be able to make contact with these other planets. I don't really know how far I agree with this man's logic. I do question how flawed it is. It's actually really funny because this whole prokaryote cell and like what is like the very first cell in the beginning of planet Earth was actually my Cambridge interview question. It was my first question, and he asked me, what molecule do you think was the first to ever exist on planet Earth? And me with COVID in my bedroom that I'm literally sitting in right now was just like, oh God, I am fucked. So that's the point. So these are some of the theories in of itself, that there is just this great filter and something's filtering these things out. And it's either we just haven't reached the great filter yet, right? This could be an extinction event that is coming for us, or it could be the fact that we have passed it and we're just super rare and we're special. We are one of the special kids. One of the other theories, and honestly, the scariest theory, in my opinion, is something called the dark forest theory. And this is a theory that is often explored in a lot of sci-fi novels and films. And it's actually even the theme of a book and now a Netflix show called The Free Body Problem. And this is basically this idea that other planets are intentionally keeping quiet because there is a massive danger out there and they do not want to draw attention to it. And Earth is being really flipping dumb by calling out to this big scary thing that could potentially attack us. So all of these planets and intelligent life are keeping so quiet because there's this big intergalactic predator out there just looking for planets to devour. There was this interesting author that said, the silence of the night sky is a very good thing. The fact that we can't hear anything is an incredibly good thing, and we should be very grateful, because if we do, that could be our impending doom. Okay, it's better to know that there is nothing out there than there is to have something out there. There's actually even a parody of this theory, and also the Free Body Problem book in an episode of Bob's Burgers. So if you don't really want to go down the sci-fi route, and I honestly genuinely think it's an extremely good parody. Honestly, Bob's Burgers, top tier adult animation. Forget Family Guy, forget The Simpsons past season 15, forget South Park. Bob's Burgers is the perfect blend of comedy, family humor, really interesting perspective, really well developed and thought out characters. It's just beautiful. Honestly, I'm going to do a whole episode of Bob's Burgers. I feel like every single episode I sit down and I'm like, oh my God, I love this thing. I'm going to do an episode about it. And I never do. Somebody should start collecting and writing them down to me, and then every month or so just send them to me and be like, these are all the things you said you would do in a podcast episode that has yet to be done. Okay, keep me accountable, guys. But in this episode, basically, Tina and this other kid are on the science project in which they want to try and make contact with aliens for the science fair because they think it will be cool. Tina then starts to freak out because she actually thinks she has made contact with aliens, and now the Earth is doomed because super duper evil aliens are now coming off the Earth, and she thinks she's doomed everybody. It turns out to be this massive prank, but it's a really cool, fun, and lighthearted exploration of the dark forest theory. A more slightly positive theory, moving out of the dark doom of a filter that's going to come and get us all, or a super alien predator that is also going to come and get us all, is this idea that colonizations of other planet isn't as important to other intelligent phases of life. Like, it might not be part of their moral constitution or their philosophy, or it could just be that they're having such a good time on their planet. They're living an absolute utopia that they are like, why the hell do I want to go over there? Why the hell would I disturb my peace, my beautiful planet, to go and colonize and see another planet? I just don't care. It's just not for me, you know? My personal favorite theory, and one that I think is very intriguing because of the current socio and political landscape of our world, is this idea of it's actually within intelligence life's nature to destroy itself. So I think this kind of just links back to the great filter being that we will eventually kill ourselves and doom ourselves. I feel like I look like I have a beard. Okay, I think I'm being paranoid. If you're watching on YouTube and this ends up being black and white, because I don't think the lighting looks good. Anyway, so this one is quite long to explain, and there are different lenses to look at the potentiality of life to be able to destroy itself. You can look at it from the idea of technological advancements, the idea of utopia, the idea of colonization and moral, all of these different factors. But I kind of want to look at this from the perspective of a theory called dynamical systems theory. So dynamical systems theory examined how advanced civilization consume resources and the feedback effects this consumption has on their planets, right? And we can even use the current climate issue to help illustrate how dynamical systems theories work and how this could potentially be the downfall of our planet and other intelligent civilizations out there in the galaxies. And this is what Adam Frank does, right? So you typically have 4 different scenarios within this dynamical systems theory. Is that number 1, a population grows super duper quickly and it becomes too much for the planet to handle. There are too many people demanding resources from a planet that isn't able to withstand or meet the demands of this. And as a result, there is a rapid decline in population and it stabilizes at a lower level at some point, and the planet can kind of recover in some way. And this kind of feels like when you talk about bacteria in GCSEs, and like how bacteria kind of like occupy and are able to survive in different environments and what might cause, the population to be destabilized and die off. Some people are like, I do not relate to any of the examples you're giving, Jessie. Okay, example of a scenario that could potentially happen in dynamical systems theory is that some civilizations are able to make the transition and meet the changes before any significant environmental degradation occurs, right? And so they are able to survive, they're able to mediate all of the situations, and they're able to basically deal with the Earth's resources with the amount of people that have. So population really never dies off. There's no extreme extinction event, blah, 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 blah. But according to this theory, that is very rare, right? And then you can have collapse without any resource change. So we absolutely do nothing to try and meet any of these situations or combat climate change or combat the lack of resources. And we reach a tipping point and population dies off because we can no longer sustain or live on this kind of planet, right? And then there's collapse with resource change. So even after attempting and trying to make the necessary changes for our planet to be able to handle us being here, right, it happens too late. So no matter what, there will be a population or societal collapse. So essentially, in this entire theory, or what dynamical systems theory is trying to suggest, that there are very, very few planets and there are very, very few intelligent civilizations that are able to hit their sustainable option in which they are able to recover and alter their resources to be able to deal with any of these changes, and the planet is able to handle them and nobody dies, okay? Right? Also, given the fact that, we're blasting off to space and doing all this extraterrestrial research that is so demanding of fossil fuels and things that are so damaging to our planet, that, perhaps other extraterrestrial life or aliens are seeing all of this necessary consumption of resources to be able to go to other planets as unnecessary and against the philosophy or the demands that their planet requires to keep everybody safe. Clearly, our billionaires didn't get that memo, right? I think it's super interesting to me because given the fact that we are currently in a stage of a lot of climate disasters, a lot of scientists have even said we've reached past the tipping point, like something is going to happen. We've reached past the point where we can slowly fade out of this or slowly make transitions, or we're not going to, no matter what, we are going to see the effects of climate change. Like we've passed that tipping point. Even recently, things like the LA fires, increase in flooding, increase in the intensity of hurricanes and typhoons in different areas and being out of season are all various different examples of how climate change is showing its real-time effects, and we're just not paying attention to it. And even if we are, our politicians and these big corporate institutions have so much power in which they are the ones that influence and move the needle. And they have decided, because of their corporate greed, I sound so preachy, but it's so true, that the needle isn't necessary to be moved. Because some people believe they can make money off of other people suffering, and it's absolutely abysmal, and it's so sad. And you know, I just have so many. We are moving to a point where society is unsustainable, and if we are thinking that this great filter that is the reason why we haven't made intelligent life with other planets is because it's in intelligence life nature to destroy ourselves, we could potentially be that living example. And I feel like as I was researching and going through all of these examples and reflecting on all of these examples, I kind of felt like an impending sense of doom. In fact, probably after everything I've said, you might think, oh my God, we're so fucked. In fact, probably on a daily basis, you open the news and think, damn, we are so finished, right? And I just kept on thinking like, damn. And I feel like for some reason, it feels very much like an unfurling reality, especially dynamical systems theory. Like, ha, 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 you know, aliens look like dolphins, ha, 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 aliens are living in a utopia. Dynamical system theory presents something that is so close. In fact, it doesn't even feel like fiction. It feels like reality towards our existence as human beings. And it's like we are almost witnessing these things around me, and like we are witnessing these things in live action in real time. However, after ending all of my research on this very, very kind of negative, almost pessimistic down note, I was like really sad for a bit, and then I end up laughing my ass off, right? Like I was just like literally like in my room cackling like the Joker, because despite me going through all of these theories and tensing up at the thought of a super alien predator coming to eat us all and take my bananas like in Dandadan, all of the articles I read, Wikipedia, research papers, different websites deconstructing this idea, YouTube videos, my flipping lecturer from that earth science courses always ends with, but we still don't really know, lol, bye. Like, we don't really know nothing. This is all us throwing paint at a wall, coming up with theories, being really creative, but ultimately we do not know the reason, and we probably will never figure out the reason in our lifetime. It's a paradox for a reason. And I think this is something to ponder on, but because if we let all of the potential big bad fear of the entire universe like weigh us down constantly, and we think about all the potential problems in the world and we treat all of them like this never ending paradox, we will literally be paralyzed by decisions and paralyzed by fear and incapable of doing something. And I think that you have agency in being able to choose and decide which problems you care about tackling and helping in the world. And that doesn't mean that you are going to have life-changing effects that might prevent us from ever reaching the great filter. And to be honest, the great filter might never even happen in your lifetime. But I truly believe that it's so important for every individual to align themselves with a cause and pursuit that really, really is in hope and help for moving society as a collective forward rather than their own personal gain. This doesn't have to be huge. This could be through volunteering, the way you spend your money, the way you eat your food, or even down to what you choose to do as your career or your free time or your hobbies or the conversations you wish to have with the people around you in your life, right? Some authors choose to tackle the conversations of food insecurity from writing romance stories about it to bring attention to some of these issues in the world, right? Some investment bankers clock out of JP Morgan and then go visit an old people home to combat elderly loneliness within their local communities, right? Somebody out there is deciding to start a sustainable perfume brand with reusable packaging after realizing how damaging perfumes are to the environment, and to decide to dedicate their livelihoods in pursuit of this goal, but also making a lot of money to do this, right? What matters most is for all of us as a collective to decide what are we going to do to be agents of change within the planet that we live in, right? We have some agency, so this is why I ask you or implore you to use this episode as a thing to do. So it turns out the likelihood of us ever reaching the point where we have intergalactic romantic dating shows or intergalactic hinge, given the fact there are 4 billion men on this planet and I'm still very much single, my dream alien boyfriend is probably not out there, and scientists are probably not even close to the answer. I think an intergalactic dating show would be so cool. I'd be so cool. You don't think I look weird with my 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 mouth? You look fine to me with my 1 big fat eye and dragon wings, Beauty is in the eye, not the eyes, because it has 1 eye. Do you know how many jokes I have to cut out of this podcast because I think people would think I'm a weirdo? But an intergalactic dating show, the entrance, oh, because you know what would be so funny in like social media is that they would publicize it and people would be like, oh, like the aliens look so weird, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then there'll be one girl that makes that one special TikTok edit of one of the aliens, right, to some random song that nobody's heard for 10 years, right? And it just blows up and everybody's like, oh, damn, like, I hear it. You know, like, oh, I want him to come and kidnap me and take me to his planet. Oh, I'm assuming gender as well of the aliens. Like, oh, I'd let the alien change me, blah, blah, blah. Like, I hear it. And you know what? I'll be one of them in the comments. Guys, hear me out. That alien kind of vibe. Oh, anyway. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this different episode. I was not exploring science, neuroscience or psychology this episode. We were kind of talking about something really fun and random. And I really hope you enjoy it. And I will see you next week for a short mini episode of Female Genius. Please let me know, what was your favorite theory today? Is there a theory that you think I missed out that would be really interesting to talk about? And also let me know how likely it is that if we did have intergalactic dating shows that you would fall prey to the power of a TikTok edit. And I will see you guys all in the next episode of Female Genius.
Female Genius.
Oh, I should be a comedian. I'm so fucking funny. And I also can't feel my legs. I've been sitting here for 50 minutes and this episode is going to be like 30 minutes long because Jessie can't speak. Just into the mic, like proper stuttering, when it's like something really basic. I forget. And do you know what I think the larger problem is and why I struggle? I don't even think it's because I can't speak or read or articulate myself. Like, I'm doing perfectly fine here. I genuinely think it's a product of my ADHD. And like my brain, as I'm talking about these things and going through these things, starts thinking about something completely different or something aligned. And I'm really trying to train myself in this podcast to not go off on too many tangents and not like every 2 minutes being like, oh, wait, this reminds me of because I recognize not everybody that listens to this podcast is as, you know, ADHD coded as I am. Is not really kind of wants to really like, bro, just talk about the aliens. I don't want to hear about what your neuroscience teacher said in one random lesson when you're talking about Big Macs. Okay. And so I'm like trying to suppress that in my brain. And then my mouth just keeps talking. And then I start to realize, oh my God, what I've said just doesn't make sense. And then I get into my head about it. And then I have to kind of like start the phrasing again. It's crazy how my brain works against me. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Okay.